it comes down to whether it's a modification of the plan and a resolicitation, which nobody wants, or it's only an implementation. That's it. That's all I got for that. And
That's
please,
a great summary.
yes, that's my summary. I wanted to hear from you, my dear friend.
No, I think it's a great summary. I mean, it's not clear cut. I think just reading the judge's body language and the questions that he was asking, um, he already pretty much made a determination, and he was just going through the legal arguments to support which way he thinks this should go. It doesn't mean that he absolutely will rule that way, but it seems like he's in agreement with what he's hearing from the majority of creditors, which I get why people are upset. I get the anger. This entire messed up process is beyond frustrating. And when we finally thought we were about to exit, we get slammed with another thing that created all sorts of conspiracy theories, that it was intentional, it was planned, and this is just to milk the estate. To me, all that that's the process that we've been in for the past year and a half. And when it came down to voting, pretty much the majority of creditors felt that we have to be realistic, that we're not going to be able to, we can look back and criticize a bunch of decisions, and there's any way you turn in Chapter 11, there are things to criticize because there's no clear path out. That's why these guys get paid so much money, disgusting amount of money to handle these cases. And the bottom line is everybody just felt that as long as we can get back most of the crypto that's left and stop the bleed, mining is a risk. It could work out. It could be it's too risky for a lot of creditors. I'm probably in that bucket, but at the bottom line is the burning building is still burning, and if we don't get out, whatever we think we're going to do to improve the situation will probably lead to 10 other problems that we're not thinking of, and that's how we voted. And even after the great disappointment with the SEC and with all the conspiracy theories, talking to people again, for the most part, I understand Loans has a particular issue that has made it a little bit worse for them, but for the most part, creditors still felt that it is time to get out. And the way I looked at like how they maneuvered with this plan, to me, it was almost like they already knew, they meaning the lawyers, already knew that there are, and they put in a disclosure statement that there's a lot of risks with the plan, the NUCO plan, and they didn't want us to be stuck going through this full process again of redeveloping, rebidding, getting the disclosure statement approved, comment period, objections, the entire process. They didn't want us to have to go through that again. So they built in this alternate dumbed down version, but they left so many things open. And it was clear that the fees didn't make sense and the capitalization didn't make sense. But they kind of, and that was a big mistake, by the way. I think they should never have put 50 million specifically in there, even though they had those footnotes, like you pointed out, that that left room for interpretation. But still, when you see a number of 50 million and then it goes to 225, even though when you actually calculate the numbers after renegotiating and everything, it's only a $73 million difference for a deal that's much better than what we had with Brick. Still, that creditors don't want to hear that at this point. So they should not have done that. They should have, it was clear to me that they left a lot of room to be able to maneuver in case we had to switch to the orderly wind down. And it was clear that they didn't develop it enough. And it was really just to avoid having to go through this process again. Once the thing happened with the SEC, again, understanding that a lot of people that were hoping for the orderly wind down to begin with so that we can get as much crypto back as possible were upset to see that number change. But we're not in control here. We don't have all the information. The debtor and the UCC did the best they can under in a very messed up system, and they felt that this was the best way to go. We can argue whether it's right or wrong, but we have to be realistic. We've been in this for way too long already. We're burning way too much money. Are we really going to start fighting over difference of, tens of millions, which sounds like a lot, but in the greatest scheme of things, the risk is much greater. The litigation risk is much greater. The risk of crypto going too high, I don't know, 55,000 a Bitcoin or, more is the real number, where we have to face other potential litigation. But again, nothing dramatically changed aside for the emotions of having to go through another round of this. For the most part, people still felt that it's time to exit. And if it means that we don't get exactly what we want once again, it's still wise to exit. And it seemed to me like the judge heard that case, and they may have pushed the boundaries a little bit, but it doesn't seem like, to me, it seems like the judge was just kind of mapping out the legal arguments to support his decision already. And, maybe he'll look closer and say, no, he can't justify it. But I'm pretty sure he's going to greenlight this.
But you have a lawyer counsel. Do you know if Joyce or whatever lawyer have the conviction this is not a plan modification? Can you
I could say
or yourself, because myself I'm not. I can surely, concur to the anger of the White case and so on, that they are taking us for a ride and so on. This is normal. This is emotional with all this process. But then it comes to the law interpretation and so on. So, clearly we have heard Kirkland lawyers and White case defending that this is not a plan modification. Okay, we heard that. Did the ad hoc lawyers truly are confident with that? Because in the end, this is what we are after. We are after a decision of the judge that this is not a plan modification. So did the lawyer in your group assert that 100%?
Well, the Earn ad hoc's position is that it's not. It's all about legal arguments that can be made and motion practice. So, you could make the arguments like we heard today that this is too big of a change, and you can make the arguments that it does affect, credit. It negatively impacts creditors, because they're getting less crypto back than some were hoping for under the orderly wind down. At the same time, you can make legal arguments. You might not agree with them, but you can. We saw it at the confirmation hearing. There were people that raised some serious objections to some of the valuations, and like, you can't listen to those objections and say that they're wrong. They're clearly right, but if professionals are able to put numbers together in a way that shows that it's a better recovery, then the judge has to, goes with it. He just.
I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
And it's the same thing here. I think it's the same thing here. So you can make the arguments that it's the revisions are too big to ignore. It's not just a modification, or if it's a modification, it doesn't. It impacts creditors' recoveries, but it's more complex than that. The lawyers are able to put together numbers and cut down fees and change things to show that at the end of the day, it's a greater recovery. And even if they couldn't, even just showing crypto prices going up gives us a better recovery than we voted on, is probably enough of a basis for the judge to say, I don't agree with it, but law doesn't always match what we think is right or wrong. So to us, it wouldn't be right to say, it's a greater recovery because crypto prices went up. But the law says that if the recovery is greater, so then it doesn't negatively impact. So they could use that. To me, the legal motion practice and arguments that can be made back and forth are less important than what creditors want here. And again, hearing, and I think the judge kind of agrees, like it seemed like from today, that yes, there are arguments to be made back and forth. He has to take them seriously. He has to rule. But ultimately, the sense is that creditors have had enough of this process. The risk is too great to go through another round of this. And we're fighting over very small differences in the big. I mean, I don't want to minimize people's anger. Like there's reasons to be really upset at how things went down. But at the end of the day, the changes are not significant enough to say that what we voted on should now be we have to start again.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cam, you want to take your chance on the modification versus implementation? Do you have a clear stance about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, to me, it does feel like a modification, but more pertinent is the fact that the debtors in the UCC and the EARN ad hoc have all lined up supporting it. I think that goes a lot further than the strict legal arguments. Because let's face it, these lawyers can argue anything. They can sell ice to Eskimos. Like, it's a matter of who's making the argument more than the argument itself. And if you look at when the debtors in the UCC have lined up together pushing on an issue, they've pretty much gotten their way. So unless there was something completely outrageous, then it's hard to think of them not getting their way here. For me, that was like when I was trying to evaluate the likelihood of the outcome today, it kind of came down to, could the objectors point out in clear terms where in the disclosure statements this new proposal is violating what was set out. I think the most compelling argument was that the BRIC group was being left out. So that wasn't the wind down that was proposed. But then they've subsequently incorporated them into this current proposal. So that neutralizes that argument. And I don't feel like the objectors really made a compelling case today. So like in my scenario, I was thinking if they had made a good case, they could point out where this deviates from the orderly wind down and then force us to do an actual orderly wind down, like discounting some of the steps they want to do with this mining code transaction. But it feels like that really wasn't successful today. There were really not very compelling arguments against. There was like the one woman who was rambling on for 15 minutes. We had, Kathy Lau was ranting and raving. And when Chris Koenig was going to address her arguments, the judge was like, don't even bother. And I think the most compelling case was put forward by Chris Villinger. But yeah, it didn't really prevail in court today. So it's hard to think of, to me, I feel like the likelihood's increased to more like 90% of this going forward, just based on what I've heard today and the way the judge was reacting of going forward with this. Unless he finds something in the law that makes it absolutely impossible to go forward. But yeah, it seems likely that this will go through. And I'm guessing the earliest we'll find out will probably be tomorrow at some point. I imagine he might want to just get this off his desk to celebrate the holidays, but hard to say. But yeah, there were some really interesting events in court too. We had some outbursts from creditors. There was, I believe it was JK, who acted like it was a Spaces call and was trolling the judge and got booted from the room. And then somebody else was putting up something about how we need to wind down and stop draining the estate and kept changing their name. And that caused all pro se creditors to get barred from re-entering the room, which wasn't good. So, it's kind of a separate matter, but as frustrating as the process is, it's sort of like being in a bear trap. You don't want to struggle in a way that makes the situation worse for yourself. And really, it was bad because it caused other creditors to be left out of the room. Like I was talking to Micmac, and he wasn't able to rejoin the court appearance because of the pranks from these at least two creditors. So, that wasn't helping the situation. As bad as the process is, to allow us to participate, we need to still remain on good behavior. Because I think the worst situation would be if we're all shut out from being able to tune in on Zoom, because it's only people that have standing in the case that are able to join. If you're a member of the general public, you have to go in person to the courtroom, and that's very difficult because I think most of the people in the case are pretty far away from New York City. So that would be a pretty big imposition if, say, we weren't able to join the January hearing. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, he addressed that people who don't behave in court, and he believe in the hearing. The hearing mission is to be public, and everybody has to respect that, and not go on rambling and making useless statement. We are not backed by a motion or an objection, which is the whole point of that. So in summary, what you said is that you think there is 90% that the judge will vote in favor of this motion, which means that this is not a modification of the plan as per the law. And yeah, it's probable. I think the 5 last minutes were the most interesting, where Chris Koenig and Aaron Colodny were questioned by the judge. He was clearly mapping this key point of modification of the plan versus implementation, and this is where Chris Koenig pointed out this footnote in the plan where a better term, a WD, can be done, which is the mining code today. I will let our dear Lawrence Porter speak if I manage to do that. And let's do that right now.
One other last thing, Nati, was if you recall, it sounded like they were going back and forth whether even if he ruled it was a modification, he'd be allowed to let it go forward if it was still in the best interest of creditors. That seemed like it wasn't yet decided, but it seemed like he was at least entertaining that possibility.
Yeah, and it seemed like he was trying to...
Say that again. No, sorry, Cam. Say that again, because... Hello, Lawrence. I did not hear Cam properly.
Yeah, I was just saying they were discussing that even if he was to rule that it was a modification of the plan, if it was still in the best interest of creditors, he was speculating that he may still be able to let it go forward. I don't know that he was definitive on that, but it sounds like something he's still considering.
Yes, that's very important. So this is the key point. So the key point is a better recovery plan modification, even if it is a modification of the plan, can I approve it and not redo a plan vote and so on. And so this is, even if it is a plan modification and he should deny it, he can, as per his power, approve it. And you think, as per your understanding of what he said, you think he can do that?
It's not definitive, but that's something that he was like openly speculating about. So I think he would need to find a basis in law to support that. But it's one of the things that he's considering. So he could either try to find a way to interpret this, that it's not a modification, which there's probably some complicated logic that could support that there, or he could find a way to support that other alternate route. But the fact that he's considering both of these options, to me, also signals that he's looking for ways to get this approved just based upon the people that are endorsing it. Like, it's hard if you have the debtors and the UCC both supporting this cause of action, and the only major party, because like the three major parties are the debtor, the UCC, and the trustee, and the third party who objects it, he basically took out back and whipped for 15 minutes. So it's hard to think that Sheriff Cornell is going to prevail when she literally got chewed out for doxing the two UCC members in her filing late last night.
Makes sense. 100%. You're right. Let's move on. Lawrence, please do your part.
Good afternoon. I was fortunate and lucky enough not to be thrown off and listened to the bitter end. I agree. There was no real argument that the judge could come up with, or anybody else, that this is a modification. No matter what we think or what we feel, we're all in favor of getting out of this nightmare we're in. And everybody who brought an argument to him was not relative to him making a decision if it was a real modification or not. So I agree with Cam 100% that he's going to probably make a decision by tomorrow, so it's off his plate for the holidays and the new year. Good luck to us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lawrence.
Yeah,
Joe, you wanted...
He seemed like he was in a giving mood today, so I think he's going to give us a holiday gift. He let everybody back in after the intermission. So.
This is where Tony comes in. Tony, please, for your part. How do you feel, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything Cam said. It looks, at least it sounded like he believes it's a material change to the plan. They had like a little brainstorming session with Koenig. They were looking for legal justification for why he would approve it anyway. So it seems like he's probably going to approve the plan. Hopefully he finds a justification that can't get appealed. I don't know what else to say. I mean, hopefully the plan goes through and doesn't force us into, a year plus of appeals court. But it does sound like Glenn wants to approve this thing. I think he just doesn't know how, which is frustrating because if he doesn't know how, then he knows he probably shouldn't. But here we are. Bankruptcy laws are apparently meant to be broken all the time, which is what we've learned this entire time. This is the law, and then when it's convenient, there's a loophole. So it looks like they're looking for the loophole. Maybe they'll get it. Maybe they won't. I have no idea what he's going to say. I think, based on the rationales that he was working through with Koenig, that he's probably going to approve this thing. He's going to rubber stamp it. It depends on what his justifications are and how, I guess, legally sound those justifications are. And, if he's going to approve it, hopefully it doesn't happen, to the detriment of creditors.
Makes sense. I agree. CryptoMiami, you want to throw a part?
Yo.
Hey, how it's doing?
Dude, I'm sorry. I was minting ordinals. I got a little distracted. I was doing the important things, like keeping Bitcoin alive. You know what I'm saying? And making sure miners get paid. So, yeah, I mean, listen, what else can you say? We all want to exit. All my trolling has never really been about the exit. It's just been about the mining. But I gave up on that. I mean, I gave up on the mining entity being sexy mining a long time ago, right? Or even being a mid-tier miner. So, I mean, I think the only really super disingenuous thing is the salad comparison, and to say that $1 of crypto, $1 of Bitcoin is equal to $1 of mining equity. Yeah, that's a little disingenuous. But in the end, there's just no one there who understands mining. No one, right? It's hard enough for them to understand Bitcoin. And I'm being generous and giving them the benefit of the doubt, but there's not a professional there who either evaluated the mining correctly, has a mining plan that's bullish. But in the end, if this is what we need to exit, then we exit, right? That's it. I mean, well, there's nothing else to say, right? And and the issue is if anyone else had an alternative idea. I mean, the problem is that those of us that were banging the drum about the valuation, listen, we're just small creditors. So, we're not the 7 or 8 figure credit. We're not the 7-figure creditors, right? So those of us banging the drum, we weren't going to hire an expert to give a contrary opinion on the valuation of the mining entity or the kind of capitalization that it really needed. So there was no other opinion. There was no other expert opinion on the mining entity other than Campagna, right? And Adu and M3 Partners. And that's all the judge that's all the judge can use to make a decision. So based on that, he'll make his decision. right? There's no, any objection that we were making, any questions we asked of them to kind of point out the issues. It's irrelevant because none of us paid to bring a true expert in who could even made a dent in any argument. So all the judge has in front of him is a bunch of experts who have done an analysis, and that's all he needs on the docket. It's just expert testimony that gives him his out, and $1 of crypto will equal $1. I mean, according to Campagna, $1 of crypto will equal $1 of mining equity. There's his out, and good luck to all of us, right? What else can you say? At least we're going to get to exit. So I'm happy about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you nailed it. $1 in the left pocket is equal $1 on the right pocket. How can you argue against that?
You can't, and you can't argue against it because there was no expert brought in to make a counter argument, right? So that's it. So it sounds like we're done. No, and I agree with everybody on the stage. The judge was, I agree with what everyone has said, which is the judge is finding a way to get us out of this. So
thank you for your sentiment, sir, and keep the miner getting paid more fees than subsidies.
Listen, Nati, Iris Please. Energy was up 39% today. I mean, if you want to be in a good miner,
never seen before.
Yeah, Iris was up 39% today in one day, one green candle. So, yeah.
Okay. Before Mr. Non-locality guy will speak, Cam, please interrupt.
Yeah, just really quickly. $1 in your right pocket is the same as $1 in your left pocket. But what they didn't mention is there's the hole in the left pocket, which is a little material difference.
Okay, Mr. Aspring, please.
Well, I think everybody understands that I come from a different position looking at this. And for me, I lean into case law. And so when I hear what happened today, and I hear that those that made an objection and also in turn have already filed their appeals brief, that they didn't make a strong case in front of the court today, that leads me to believe they're keeping those cards close to the chest for the 11th Circuit. I know the 11th Circuit has turned down plan decisions based solely on two words, that being adequate information. So this idea of modification being the most important takeaway from today, that is all, in my opinion, KYA. Glenn knows where this is headed, especially after pissing off the trustee today. Do you think the DOJ likes to get their throat shitted down? So my take is I think there's a higher likelihood that the likelihood for me is that this is going to end up in the 11th Circuit, regardless of what Judge Glenn does.
Yeah, that's my fear this whole time.
So an appeal. So it's not going through for you.
Going through it, of course it can go through, but will there be an injunction by the 11th to stop the plan from moving forward? That's a different question, and when that comes, I have no clue how that works.
So aspiring, and I'm glad you're up here, but do you know how long those things usually take? Because from what I'm hearing, it's like years.
Oh, I did a little research, and Simon did a tweet, and I responded to one of his tweets. But the case from 2023 that I'm referring to with the adequate information, that case took a while. Hold on, let me find it.
Yeah, because I mean, just thinking out loud, right? Like someone would have to appeal. Let's say it's a trustee or the DOJ or whoever. They would have to appeal. They would have to find a judge to take it. I don't know how long that would take. Is that going to stop distributions? until a judge takes it or whatever. They have to schedule it. You have to work on, how long do you need? How long is discovery? How long is this? How long is that? And those things usually take a long time. So, I'm looking at a year being generous, but I'm scared it might take like 2 or 3. And then at that point, like when, God forbid, knock on wood, I don't have any wood near me, but God forbid this ends up being like a Mount Gox situation just because we're trying to exit quickly. That's been my fear this entire time. I wish we just resolicited. We would have had a vote ready, and then by February anyway, we're not going to get out of bankruptcy. So maybe a thing could have been done by then.
Yeah, your sentiments I'm echoing internally. The bankruptcy case for America's TV Station Group was filed on May 14, 2019. The bankruptcy plan was confirmed on June 3rd, 2020. The case was terminated on March 5th, 2021. The 11th Circuit of Appeals delivered its decision on January 5th, 2023. And that's why, as frustrating and fucking just absurdly ridiculous as it may sound, this idea of resolicitation might be the smartest approach. I don't know. But this idea of dismissing it outright, and this idea that because nobody made a case today, which I wasn't listening to it, so I'm not sure if that's exactly true, but a good case today at the very least, it doesn't seem like anybody's reflecting those sentiments. So to me, that is odd. And I would be surprised now if Judge Glenn rules against moving forward. I, like the rest of you, feel like this is going to be rubber stamped. So the question is how is the 11th Circuit going to digest this? Are they going to take the case or not?
But there need to be a ground for appeal. So if there is no ground for objection, how can there be a ground for appeal?
Well, the grounds are quite simple. You guys were highlighting which this terminology was being focused on in court today. This idea of modification versus whatever that other word you guys were talking about.
Implementation.
Implementation. And I know from reviewing this, and I'm not a lawyer, but reviewing this CV America Group case, that the court made their decision based on adequate information not being provided to those voting on the plan. So that's just simply adequate information. That bar is much lower. And then they got this valuation thing, which the trustee is making a stink about. The question is, who's filed for appeals and what are they thinking? You're obviously not going to get much color from the DOJ, but isn't it Otis and a few others who filed? So I'd be curious to know their opinions.
I think the only ground to contest the information, the adequate information, will be to have an evaluation expert which contest the mining net asset value valuation. And this is not the UST or the SEC who's going to do that with valuation, a financial advisor. So I think the only point which can be contested is that the valuation of the mining, which ultimately give a better overall recovery, is not relevant. It's inflated. And that's the only point which can be contested to appeal on this plan, in my opinion. Then there may be other points, but how
do you satisfy this adequate information concern?
But you need to have opposing experts that say that this 525 million and 225 million funding for the new co is inflated, does not reflect reflect the market as per the asset of the debtor in the mining section. Those are inflated numbers, and they are not in sync with the market. But CryptoMiami said it. There is no opposing party in terms of valuation. So I don't see any ground for appeal besides any case law or very section of the code. But if the judge take the decision that there is no modification as per the code, and he take the burden of approving this motion, there won't be any ground for law objection. So the only objection that could remain in court today was an inflated valuation for the net asset value, in my humble opinion. But maybe someone know better.
Yeah, but even that argument, she's not willing to listen to it. For all the arguments that may or may not have been relevant, he's like, well, you should have objected earlier.
That's like correct, yes.
Even the Cedarvale, the build-out costs, which how would we have known how much it was during when they were finalizing the settlement with Core Scientific? That was one of the items that was discussed, and he's like, well, you should have objected to it during the Core Scientific settlement. And it's like, who the fuck knew that this was going to cost $150 million at that time? So
makes sense. Makes sense. Mike, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, that was a tricky one, Tony, right? When the judge made that statement, if you wanted to object to Cedarvale, you should have done it then. And if you remember how that happened, we had just voted, right? We had just voted, and we just found out the plan was confirmed. And then on a Friday night at midnight, that document dumped. And it was just in the morass. I think it was Amendment 5. I think it was the Fifth Amendment of the plan that came in, and we started looking at this. And then it was only, I think, a week or two later that it went into court and got confirmed. But there was no ad hoc or no expert that could have had time or information to even oppose that, or even put something on the docket that would have opposed it, right? It would have been crazy. But yeah, and what I was going to say, Nati, I mean, this thing about the mining valuation, the thing is aspiring. There's nothing on the docket, right? I mean, and for this thing to be appealed, it's going to be on a technicality. It's not going to be on the facts of the case, right? The facts of the case, what's admitted in evidence is in evidence, and that's over. It's been over. So appeals are not there to overturn, a judge's decision based on the facts of the case. It's going to be on a technicality or a fine legal argument. And like, there's nothing I see. Yeah, I mean, like you have YOLO's appeal, but YOLO's appeal is about expulcation. There's nothing that's a very particular issue that I don't think would stay the case, because that's about explication. That's not even about creditor monies being returned. And then Otis's appeal, if he actually files it, is about sell token. Johan Broge, if he keeps his, is about loans and who and the title of the loan, who owned the title of the crypto. So these are sort of specific issues that I don't think it's going to get much traction, to be honest with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I agree.
Yeah, but the thing that can get appealed is the exact same thing that they're looking to pass this plan, because of, which is that it's a modification to what was voted on,
exactly,
but it doesn't adversely affect the creditors. And one way to, I'm not trying to give anyone ideas, but part of the thing that affects the creditors is the equity value, and the equity value is based off of a hash rate that's in the 250s. If anyone keeps up with hash rate, it is literally double.
Yeah, but Tony, you don't submit new evidence to the appeals court. You just use the evidence that's on the docket, right? And that's it.
The evidence is wrong, were misleading.
Well, I know,
or
but that was my point, which is any one of us who knew all this and had been banging the drum, if we really wanted to make that case, we would have hired a lawyer and made a filing and hired an expert, and we didn't, right?
Yeah, but
So, yeah.
if there's no disclosure that says this is what we're projecting, but what if it goes the opposite direction?
Oh, no,
So how
no,
much money is Nucor going to
Tony.
lose?
Yeah, but guess what? When you read the investment banker's mining valuation, it says this mining evaluation is as of May 31st, 2023. This may change, and we're not responsible for any, forward change in forward, metrics. Basically, that the valuation was good as of May 31st, but any change in market conditions after, they're not responsible for. It's there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the weather.
That sounds like a scam, no?
It's like the weatherman. It's not going to rain today, and if it does, then my bad, bro.
The funny thing too, Tony, is in the HUD-8 U.S. Bitcoin Group merger. When you read that merger document that was submitted to the SEC, their valuation of the actual merger of an existing public company, which is HUD-8, dude, they used a forward hash rate and projections of 200 because their valuation was done in April, and they just closed their deal. They used 200, and I think the highest they got, they were projecting a Bitcoin hash rate next year of I think the highest they went was 300. So, and they just closed their deal a couple of weeks ago, right? And the hash rate's already up at 450, 500. I mean, their valuation is so wrong, and they closed their deal, right? They merged, and not only did they merge, but that valuation determined the stock split of an existing public company, which is crazy, right? We're not talking about us like emerging out of bankruptcy and getting an evaluation and all that. Like, they're an existing company that had a stock split using that valuation that was that old and that out of date. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point, right? It looks like it's going to get approved. Hopefully, it gets done in a way that isn't appealable, whether it's Otis or YOLO or whoever, Johan or anybody else. Hopefully, whatever the judge ends up cooking, doesn't come back to bite us in the ass.
Yeah, and how many pro se creditors? Well, I guess I mean, how many pro se creditors are going to win on an appeal, which is basically the appeal is written, so they're not. Who's hiring an appeals lawyer to write an effective appeal that will be seen by an appeals court, right? I mean, that takes money, time, effort. I mean, I guess the only thing Aspire's talking about, if there's a stealth party that wants to come in and appeal, that has lawyers that can cause fuckery.
I don't know if he agree with you that it will only be on the technicality of the law and so not of the fact of the evaluation. That was a good point. I have Frischberg, Mr. Daniel who wants to speak, but Mr. Aspiring, you can reply to that before Frischberg.
Thank you, Nati. Yeah, I am simply focused on case law, not personalities. And I just found another one, New Power Company. In this case, the 11th Circuit considered what constituted sufficient disclosure for the purpose of a plan modification of Chapter 11. The court's decision highlighted that the standard for adequate information is not particularly high. And that's bottom line here. It's not high. So, yes, to Michael's point, the question is, who has those appeals filed, and what's the follow-up look like? And are perhaps settlement talks for those appellants underway?
All right. For now, we don't have huge party appealing, but we don't know what's coming. Daniel, so the main point was the judge sentiment for the approval of the motion. Is that a modification of the plan or only an implementation? Please, you have your time. is connecting.
Sorry, I just
I'm
missed the
going.
last 10 seconds of what you said. What was the question again?
No, the question. This is your sentiment following this
It's
hearing.
probably gonna get approved.
Yeah, it's probably getting approved. So whether it's a modification of the plan or not, yeah, the judge can approve it. That's your
I
sentiment?
mean, the judge can effectively. I mean, with a set of facts, I think he can go either way. You've seen with Glenn, he has a way of he can rule whatever way he wants, and until an appeals court says otherwise, it's the way it's gonna go. And I just don't think. I don't think with the current set of facts, it's going to be very hard for him to rule to approve it. It's relatively speaking a toss-up, so he can go either way. I think he's going to approve it because, based on the way he was talking. But Glenn's an enigma. You never know what he's thinking.
Fair enough. Okay. Cam, you want to come back?
Oh, sorry, I was just reconnecting. But yeah,
Oh, that's fine.
I think.
All right.
I think CryptoMiami's probably done more for Celsius mining than anybody that actually works for the company. So thanks for that, Michael.
Well, number one, I have a
Mike
teacher,
is great,
right? Sharon has taught me so much about mining. That's one of the godsends. And Tony and Al, there's a bunch of like this bankruptcy has got me into this whole new world, which is absolutely insane. And I've learned a lot. I mean, it's been this silk lining. So it's a bit crazy, right? There is some good news though. Like, well, we've been busy in court and doing all this crazy stuff. Did everyone see that the leak that the SEC had a conference call with all 10 of the Bitcoin ETF providers today, pre-holiday, for a group call. So let's go.
It happened. I seen the news, but it effectively happened today.
Yeah, that was the leak today. Yeah, it was from multiple sources that 10 of the Bitcoin ETF providers had a group call with the SEC today for final reviews.
But we already had this news, but the leak provided some result, or
we've seen on the SEC's docket that they've been meeting individually with each I almost said mining provider, with each Bitcoin ETF provider, and of course you saw at the last holdouts were ARK 21 shares and BlackRock were the last ones that made it a cash redeem model, which they did this week. So that was like the final holdout to this cash redeem model. But they've all been meeting with the SEC. But what was novel today was that the SEC met with all 10 of them at once. So that got the speculation of a mass approval, right? So that's
I've read it's tomorrow. The approval is dropping tomorrow. I don't think so, but yes, maybe a coordination that all the ETF are cash redeemable, and that's how it looks like. I also seen Max Kaiser posting a thread about conspiracy on the ETF. Whatever.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think it's going to get announced between Christmas and New Year's because, I mean, starting this weekend, every New York financial person will be here in South Florida. So, yeah, I don't think anything's going to happen between Christmas and New Year's. If it's going to drop, it'll drop, before Friday. But other than that, it'll be after New Year's.
Yeah, it will be next year, 100%. Okay, I will close the room soon, so I will let Tecmo make his 2 cents on the non-investment advice that he wants a liquidation. And hello, Tecmo. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, what is your sentiment? You have had the time to listen to the hearing?
No, I was just coming in to say that, you could get a bunch of people together to tell them all no as well as you can tell them all yes. I mean, the sentiment seems to be that everyone thinks it's going to get approved, but I just want to be realistic and say that they can also say no to a bunch of people as well.
That's possible. That's possible. Not believing in the opium too much. That's nice.
Yeah, I just like to bring it back down to earth because what I want to happen may not happen. So I just like to be realistic. So
Wise words.
Tecmo wants to buy Bitcoin at 15,000 again. Yeah, he's looking for that big dip.
preferably at 10K, honestly. So I just want a sale. A quick sale is all I ask for because I feel like what we've all been through, we earned it. We earned a Bitcoin sale, and then it can spike all at once, you know.
But for that to happen, you need the distribution. You need to
Yeah,
get to have the Celsius distribution, and then the Black Swan crash.
yeah,
So
exactly.
this is a lot of planet alignment at the same period. So,
Well,
so
I checked with my
astrologist.
yeah, exactly. I checked with my astrologist and my tarot card lady, and she said that we're all screwed. So what are you gonna do?
Now the sentiment is that Glenn is going to approve the joint motion, and we don't get any appeal. And that end of January we get a Coinbase distribution. That's the best case scenario. A very, very, very best case.
Yeah, I think best case they say Glenn says, look, everyone wants to get this approved, or at least majority of the people want this approved. I've figured out a way to get it approved, and distributions start in as as early as January. That seems unlikely, but that's the best case scenario. I personally would prefer a pivot to liquidation and trying to get that expedited.
I told you.
So for me, I mean, I know Joe has a certain view of things. I heard him saying that the debtors and the UCC did their best. I agree they did their best. I just disagree with for who. Uh, so, I think if 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 we all were hooked up to a polygraph and had to actually sit down and answer some hard questions or under oath, I think truth would come out and Celsius creditors would realize that no one is in their corner. Everyone is in their own corner for themselves and trying to further their own personal positions, whether that's with a board seat, whether that's with a mining, whatever, with a future play to merge, whatever it is. No one in the Celsius community is being represented as a person who just has some funds on there that they wanted to squirrel away and earn some interest for their retirement. No one is looking out for them and saying we should get their money back to them as quickly as possible, and we should not invest it into a random crappy mining company with people who don't know what the F they're doing.
Yes, you got that right. Alain, you want to come speak your mind quickly before we end the space? I have Colonel Mustard requesting. I don't know if it's a good idea, but let's go. Mr. Mustard, you have your 5 minutes in court. Mr. Mustard.
Hey, good evening, everybody, or afternoon. I just want to add one thing from the end of the hearing. I encourage everyone to manage your expectations appropriately. I'm under the impression that based on the remark that the judge made at the end of the hearing, indicating that he has some pretty significant plans for the holidays, to temper your expectations and expect a ruling. I'm not saying he won't rule before the first of the year, but I think it's most likely that it would come out after the first of the year. Shortly after, I suppose. And I just want to echo the sentiment that I still believe he's looking for every way possible, including his spitballing there at the end with what's his face, to find a way to approve it. But of course, he wants that to stand, and be able to hold up in the event that someone appeals it or to just have an appeal rejected. So ideally, he wants the best legal base as possible, and you can't blame him there. So just temper expectations. Everybody have a terrific holiday season, and we will move into another calendar year together. I mean, it's pretty cool. Much love, everybody. Happy holidays.
Well, if we all appeal, we could probably do this again next year.
Well, I'm not opposed to being in it in 2025, but I think by 2026 I'll be shorting Mining Co. if it's still in business. So thanks very much.
I'll lend you my shares so you can short them.
That's a neat idea. I was going to do like a Porky Pig short, but a naked short's okay too. Nod's as good as a wink to a blind man.
If we all take the LSATs now, we could probably get into law school by fall of 2024. So depending on how long the appeal process makes, that could be a good route to getting made whole.
Daniel, you have room in your dorm for all of us?
We can make it fit, but it'll be a bit tight.
All right, we're all on a budget now.
Nobody? Nobody's throwing in the that's what she said? Nobody? Thanks for hosting the space, Natty. You're a stand-up guy.
Yeah, thank you.